This is an Austrian Heritage Collection interview with Mr. Eric Willner, conducted by Michael Spiegel in New York on November 8, 2012. Mr. Willner, please tell me your...
interject? It's Rabbi Dr. Eric Willner.
Titles.
No, you might as well get him in.
Yes, we should have
I
that
think
on the
that's
tape.
important.
Yes, it is. So, Rabbi Willner, can you please tell me your life story? Maybe beginning in your early childhood and when and where you were born.
I was born in Vienna and lived in Vienna until little few months after the occupation by Hitler, by Germany occupying Austria. I was approximately 11 and a half years when I left Vienna with a kinder transport going to England, arranged by an organization called the Agudas Israel, and actually arranged from the England side by Rabbi Schoenfeld, who was the son-in-law of the chief rabbi of England, and was very active in saving Jews from Germany and German-occupied countries. So as far as the life in Austria, that goes back so many years, and my memory was never that great, and certainly now don't really remember very much. We lived in an apartment house in the Cookie-Gasse. There were Jews and non-Jews living there. In fact, we were very friendly with, on the floor below us, a non-Jewish family called Spang. I mention the name because when I was in Vienna around 15 years ago for 2 days during a visit through some European countries, I still saw the name Spang on that door. It's either the person who is now very old or his children living in that apartment. We were friendly with this non-Jewish family. They used to, when we needed on the Shabbos, on the Shabbat, where we couldn't handle lights and heat, they used to come and do things for us to accommodate us. But when Hitler occupied Austria, the very next day, the stormtroopers, SA or SS, would come to arrest the Jews, pull them out of their houses. The person who led them to the Jewish houses pointed out was that Mr. Spang, who was really very friendly with us, but I guess he didn't have much of a choice. He was probably obligated to point out the Jewish families in the house. So that's one of the memories that sticks in my mind. It left an impression. Now, my father, fortunately, wasn't held very long. They didn't have enough room yet in the concentration camps to ship the Jews out. He was held in a police station and sent home in a couple of days. The only thing I noted was that some hair torn out of his scalp, and he told me reluctantly how this happened. But after this incident, my mother had a brother in the United States, in America, who she pleaded with him to try to get us an affidavit to leave Austria to come to America, which he did, and we received this affidavit for the whole family, my mother and I, my mother and my father and myself, and I had one sister who was 5 years older than I, and we got the affidavit to come, all of us come to America. However, America at the time was reluctant to take in too many Jews at a time, so there was a quota system, depending on where what citizen you were, how long you have to wait to come to America. Since Hitler, when he occupied Austria, took away citizenship from the Jews, so the Jews were all stateless. So we were not citizens officially. We weren't considered citizens of Austria, but stateless. So the wait was more lengthy wait. If you were stateless, you went by the country you were born in. My father was born in Poland, so there was a quota for close to a year before who the president at the time was Roosevelt in the United States would allow him to come. So what he did is try to get the kids out, and through, as I mentioned, the Good Israel organization, they arranged the kinder transport. So at the end of 1938, I believe it was in December, something, November or December, they went with the kinder transport. Probably.
Your father tried to escape before that.
Oh, I should remind me. We did. My father found out from a cousin that the Belgium and Holland were very liberal and enabling some Jews to illegally cross the border into Belgium or Holland. So, since of course the men were in much greater danger than the women at that time, so my father took me along on what he thought would be an escape to Belgium, and of course Austria. We had to go through Germany. We went through Germany, and from there we were going to cross from Cologne into Belgium. When we arrived in Cologne, we got out of the train station. We saw lines and lines of people standing there with police dogs watching them. And we're told that these people had been lined up already for a couple of days, who were caught trying to leave the country, and they were waiting to be shipped to a concentration camp. So we were put on this line. We didn't willingly put on this line. Fortunately, I guess God was on our side. We after about less than a day, we found out that they had discovered there was not enough room in Dachau, which was the concentration camp that was closest, or at least that's where they sent the people, and they decided to ship the latter group of people that came late, ship them back to Vienna. They didn't tell us we were going back to Vienna. They told us we were going on the trains to the concentration camps. But fortunately, after a long, long trip, much longer than it should have taken from Cologne to Vienna, it should have taken more than a couple of hours, but took close to a day. I don't know how the trains went, but we ended up back in Vienna, fortunately. It was fortunate because my father, we got papers. First of all, he got me out of Vienna by registering me for that kinder transport going to England. So I ended up going to England with the kinder transport. Just to make the story short, after being in England for a number of months, he wrote me a letter that he found that he had a distant cousin living in London. The kids were not in London because there was the rabbis there organized committees in the towns surrounding London, from London, to take kids into their homes. And I was designated to go with a family that was living in Croydon. At the time, Croydon had the airport, where Heathrow is now the airport. At that time, the airport was in Croydon, about 10 miles from, about 10, 15 miles out of London. And so we were shipped to Croydon. I stayed with a family there, a Jewish family, for a very short period of time, because the Good Israel arranged to build a hostel, children's home, right attached to the synagogue in Croydon. And so we were all put up in that hostel. My wife just showed me a picture. This is a picture of myself in Vienna, in my classroom in Vienna. I am right here on the corner there. Right, this one I corner to myself.
Talk about you in school there.
Well, I went to school. Yeah, of course, I went to school. This is Bibliothek. There was the school in Begittenau. This was the public school, Volksschule.
And you had to change after.
Yes. When after was occupied, the Jewish kids were no longer able to stay in the school, but there was some active Jews organized a learning program, a study program in somewhere in the Zweite Bezirk in Vienna, and we every day it was quite a walk. It was a walk. Walked to the school. Went to school until our turn came. The teacher there was very active in arranging the children's transports through England, to arrange for me to go with the transport to England. Actually, I was supposed to go originally. There was transport to Holland, to Belgium, and to England. Originally, my father had registered me to go on the transport to Holland, but fortunately, it was an act of God, I guess, because the kids who ended up in Holland, most of them didn't survive, because Hitler ended up occupying Holland and Belgium. My father heard there was a transport to England. He arranged somehow, using some pull that he had, some contact with the organization, to have me sent with the transports to England rather than to go to Holland. So I ended up going to England. It was, I believe, it was the end of 1938, and yes, I was in England. First in Croydon when the war broke out, when Hitler occupied Holland. England declared war, and once war was declared, it was dangerous for the kids to be in big towns, London or even Croydon, which was certainly even more dangerous because the airport was, at the time they figured one of the first places to be bombed would be the airport. So they shipped kids out to some northern communities, north of London, north of Croydon. We ended up in Horsham, a small town in north, about 30, 35 or 40 miles north of London, and where I stayed actually pretty much close till the time came for us to go to America. Now, basically, my mother, who was lived in Vienna, after my father got, I arranged, he wrote me a letter that he had a cousin living in London. I should try to get her to send him an affidavit. You had to have someone who was willing to send you an affidavit and pledging to support you. England didn't want to take in Jews to be, dependent on the government for help. So that family, I went with an older kid. I was at the time barely 12, not even 12. An older boy, about 14, went with me to London to visit the family, and they did agree to send a certificate, it was called, for my father to come to England. And fortunately, within a matter of a number of months, it's also a long story because it would have been a long wait. Someone advised me that, as a child, if I went to the British Home Office, which is like the State Department here, to plead for my father to get him to speed up the process, because my father wrote me that if he doesn't leave Vienna within the next few months, he would be sent to a concentration camp. I went there with the older boy, who I convinced them that my father was in great danger, and I pleaded to speed up the process. So it happened. I don't know how, but it happened. And he did manage to get out of Austria early enough before the time came for him to be shipped to concentration camp. And he came to England, and the Hayas, the Hebrew immigrant, I think Hebrew immigrant aid society, that put up people. They put him up in a place because the people who brought him up were told, even though they sent the certificate that they would support the family, that they wouldn't be obligated, wouldn't have, because if they were obligated to support, they might not have sent the certificate. So my father was put up with Hayas, and while I was already in that children's hostel in Croydon, and when the war broke out, they were shipped some miles north of Croydon to Horsham, a small community. Actually, Horsham, together with a number of other kids from that hostel, we put up by families in Horsham. We put up with a non-Jewish family. We lived with a non-Jewish family for a number of months. Very nice family. For about 2-3 years, I kept corresponding. When I was here in America, I kept corresponding with that family in England until one of the two, I forgot whether it was the husband or the wife, passed away. And we were in touch for quite a while. And from Horsham, when our turn came to come to America, with my sister, ended up.
They didn't know you were Jewish.
Then the family didn't know I was Jewish.
Oh.
I don't think they realized what a Jew was, because all they knew was what was her name, the Nazi, British Nazi. I can't think of his name now. Mosley.
Yeah, Mosley.
Right, Mosley.
Yeah.
When Mosley told the people went traveling from town to town, telling people to beware of the Jews, that and in fact that the person I stayed by, not knowing that I was Jewish, he knew I was from Vienna. When I told him I don't eat meat, he thought in Vienna you don't eat meat. Yeah. And when on Shabbat, I told them they gave their daughter. They had one daughter, and they considered me like a son. A pocket money, like an allowance, you call it pocket money in England. I think a tuppence piece, 2 cents. I pulled my head away. I didn't want to take money on the Shabbat. So I told him we don't take money. He thought in Vienna you don't take money on Shabbat. That had no understanding. Because when he found out that, when I told him my father was in London, and it came time for my mitzvah, I told him I have to go to London. I didn't tell him what for. My father is there. I have to visit my father. He said, I told me where he lived. I told him where he lived. He was in Whitechapel, Aldgate area, which was the Jewish section of London. He said, Eric, when you go there, better watch out. They have those Jews there. I still remember how he demonstrated to me, had their wares laid out on a table outside, and he I still remember how he demonstrated to me. They have, for example, if you want to buy some plates, you're going to buy 3 plates. They're going to wrap up 2 plates and shove one on the side. He demonstrated how they did, and only give you 2 plates. This stays in my mind. How he demonstrated to me. He found out I was Jewish because when I came back after my mitzvah, when I came back from London, I had tefillin, and I needed longer to pray. I was in my room always, got up about 20 minutes earlier to say my prayers, but when I had my mitzvah, it took a little longer. And it seems Mrs. Her name is Balaam, the family I stayed by, she says, I was tidying your room, Eric, and I found in the drawer you have the boxes where you hide your money. She saw the tefillin, the tefillin that you put on your head and hand. She thought that these boxes. At that point, I explained to her that this is not, these are clothes, you don't hide anything in there. Those are things that you put on your head and on your arm when you pray. I was Jewish when they found that I was Jewish. fact, that evening when Mr. Ballum found out his wife told him I was Jewish, he called me over and says, Eric, you remember when I told you about the Jews in Whitechapel, Aldgate area in London? I didn't mean anything by that. I'm just repeating what Mosley told us when he came to talk here in town. So the nice people, we corresponded, I said, for a couple of years. Fortunately, a good of Israel decided to get those Jewish kids out of the Christian homes, and they built a hostel outside of London, about not far from Horsham, where I lived with an un-Jewish family. In Tyler's Green was a town there, which was safe, and they took the Jewish kids and put them into a hostel in Tyler's Green. So all the Jewish kids were together again, about approximately 25 to 30 kids in that hostel in Tyler's Green, where I stayed until my turn came to go to America. My father, meanwhile, had arranged, or had also arranged for my sister to come up where there was a transport of domestics. The British decided there was a priest who said he was going to save some of the older girls, 16, and bring them as domestics into the southern part of England. And my sister ended up coming as a domestic to England. And I didn't see her until the time of the mitzvah. My sister had arranged to come to London. I went from Horsham to London and stayed with my father for a week during that time when I was mitzvah. And as I told you, when I came back, they found out that seeing the film, I explained to them I was Jewish. Okay, that's about it. In England, I was in England. Our turn came to go to America. When was it? At the end of I think it began in 1940, early 1940. We came. My mother, meanwhile, had gotten her papers to go to America, so she went straight from Vienna to America. She had a brother here in America, and her turn came. I mean, the time was up for her to go, and she went straight to America. And a number of months later, we arranged through the British Home Office to get our papers to, since we had affidavits to go to America, to go where it was arranged for us to join my mother in America. My mother, meanwhile, she had some cousins here in New York, and they got her an apartment, also through Hyatt, made the arrangements on the Lower East Side. And when we came, we moved into that apartment. So we were, for the first time, reunited, my father, myself, and my sister. And my mother had already been in America at the time. Unfortunately, a week before we came, my mother's brother, who brought up, passed away. So he was no longer alive at the time. But my mother had this apartment, and we lived on the Lower East Side for quite a while. Now, what else did I want? Let me see. Do you have any questions?
Did you ever know? You mentioned that your father was from Poland. Did you ever know your grandparents?
No, I never knew my grandparents. My father was a bookbinder. He worked for Schlesinger, if you know, in Vienna. Still, that company may still be in existence, or maybe not by now. A lot of the Hebrew books were published. Schlesinger Publishing Company, a well-known publishing company, distributed books throughout the world, and he worked for them. He was a bookbinder, and so essentially, what was I? Let me see what I started.
Grandfather.
Oh yes, the grandfather. I found out looking at some of the books my father had in the house, which he had inherited from his father, that his father knew his name. It's in the book, and that he had lived in Poland, but we never managed to go to visit Poland. My father didn't have the money to make the trip to Poland. He had a sister living in Vienna who didn't manage to put together the money. She was a seamstress on the side, so she sewed dresses, and she saved up enough money to go to Poland, but we never did. And when I was born, her parents were no longer alive. In fact, she lost her parents when she was 12 or 13 years old. She no longer had parents. They passed away in Budapest, in Hungary. And my father's, when I was born, the only grandparent who was still alive was father's father. My father's mother was no longer alive. And we never got to see the father, the grandfather. Father didn't have the money to go to Poland, while his sister didn't manage to go. My cousin, who still lives now here also, managed to visit the grandfather. Never did, so I really never know him, nor did I ever see a picture of him. There were no photographs they didn't believe in allowing photographs to take. They believed as part of the Ten Commandments not to have a graven image of a person. It was a lot of people believed that, and so no photo. I've never seen a picture of my grandparents, although my wife's grandparents already managed to have photos taken when we're in Romania, and I do have photos of them. And, let me see what did I.
And your father went to Vienna because of his.
Oh yes, it's during the First World War. A lot of the Jewish men who were 19, 20 years old or so, 21, in order to avoid being drafted into the army at the time, left Poland, went to Vienna, went to Austria, which was
This is my liberal grandfather who had his picture taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so liberal.
Yeah.
And your mother, was she from Vienna or?
My mother was
she...
born in. I think she was born in Budapest, in Hungary, and then was brought up by an uncle after her parents died. I said she was about 12, 13 when she lost her parents, and she was raised by an uncle until she got married. How my father and mother met, I don't know. But obviously, I think they were married in Hungary, in Budapest, and then went right after the wedding. I believe they went to Austria, to Vienna. Don't know why. I guess probably considered safer.
And did they speak Yiddish or?
They spoke German. Really. They spoke, in the house among themselves, they spoke Yiddish most of the time. But like this, to me, they spoke in German. Really, I didn't know much Yiddish at the time, other than since Yiddish is a dialect of German, it wasn't hard to figure out what they were saying in Yiddish. They spoke Yiddish when they didn't want me to hear. I had to understand what they were saying, but it wasn't so difficult to figure out. Yeah.
And where did you learn English?
Oh, English, that's very interesting. English in Vienna, when they started organizing children transports to go to England, Holland, Belgium. It was one of our teachers of course, when Hitler, when they came in, when we couldn't stay in that school any longer, they opened up Jewish schools in the second district. I think Malzgasse, there was a school. I don't remember anymore where that was, but I still remember it was in the Malzgasse. There was a Jewish school where we went to school, and the teacher there was very active in all this rescue work, and he was the one basically who arranged through the rabbi there in London to get kids on transports. English. English. That teacher, when I don't know how he knows English. He knew English, knew it very well. His name was Weisel. I don't know if you're familiar here. They, for many years, they were selling, I may still do Adwe products, cosmetic products, lipstick and things of that sort. Adwe, Adler, that Adwe type, Adler Weisel. These are two people, Mr. Adler and Mr. Weisel, organized that company. And so this Mr. Adler, who was my teacher, and I was a teacher in the school, and he was very active in arranging this transport, and the kids who were destined to go to England, he taught them English. So that we went there 3 times a week to that school and learn English. So when I came to England, I was one of the few kids who knew how to speak English. In fact, when we got to England, to Croydon, we went to public school there, and a lot of the kids didn't know English. So I went around as an interpreter from school, from the boys' school. There were separate boys' schools and girls' schools. I mean, and these were public schools, not for religious reasons. I guess they kept the boys and girls in separate schools. Remember, I went back and forth to help translate when the kids didn't know how to speak English. So fortunately, it was easy for me, and so I got around quite well in England.
Can you recollect the life in Vienna before the occupation? So was it a very anti-Semitic?
Before the occupation, I don't have any recollection. I guess I may have been too young to really have been aware of any overt anti-Semitism. But obviously, these people. There must have been plenty of Nazis living in Vienna, because the day after Hitler occupied Vienna, that astounded me. The Nazi flags were hanging all over the buildings. I think, where in one day, how did we get all these Nazi flags? The swastikas. I guess people had been already joined the National Socialist Party before Hitler actually occupied Vienna. There was the National Socialist Party, but there was no overt anti-Semitism. It wasn't until actually the day after Hitler occupied Vienna, when I walked down to the street. Our windows did not face the street. We wanted to see what was going on. There was a neighbor whose windows faced the street. We would go to the neighbor and look at the street. And that's where we saw the day Auschwitz was occupied. He showed us there was a motorcade with Hitler standing there on top on the car with his hand up, the Nazi symbol, and the people all around the car yelling, "Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer, Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil." Yeah, that was. And the day after they occupied, when I went to the street, they took men, women, elderly, all ages, to wash the sidewalk. So the people. That was the first sign of anti-Semitism. I saw the men and women, older men and women, with they gave them these brushes to scrub the sidewalk.
That school picture, aren't the Jewish children in one corner?
Yeah, I don't know.
So that's already...
Yeah, it's I don't know. Well, maybe the kids over here, these are Jewish kids, and the kids back there are Episcopalian. The rest were Catholic. Most of the kids in this class were Catholic. As the teacher there, and here, this kid, I still remember these kids here, and these two kids here were Jewish kids, and these kids here on the side, sitting here and standing here, were Episcopalian, but non-Jews. So obviously, I became aware of it only for over here, that they were seated separately. But I don't think it was a matter of course. I assumed, and maybe it was the reason, because once a week or twice a week, I don't remember, there was a religion class, and the kids were divided by religion. Otherwise, it was all in one class. But when religion was taught, the Jews went to a Jewish class, and the Episcopalian went to a Episcopalian class, and the other kids stayed, Catholic, coming in to teach. So I assumed that maybe that was the case, that the kids were seated to make it easier to move them when during that religion period.
And your friends were Jewish, or?
Well, the friends were mostly Jewish. although I remember as kids, this one here, we were familiar with some of the other kids, but the kids, obviously, I see we're sitting close to each other, that we tended to be friendly there, right, sitting near each other, and of course joining, all went together to the religion class, so we had the Jewish friends. Of course, also where we lived, there was, they showed me the picture of the Kluki temple.
Yeah.
There were a lot of Jews living there, and also at the end of the block, past the Kluki temple, there was a small synagogue, small Hasidic synagogue, where my father worshipped. Didn't go to the Kluki temple, so there were a lot of Jewish kids living on the block, so were friendly.
Did the bank have?
What?
Did the family in the building that identify the Jews, did they have any children?
Yes, sure, Span. Yeah, sure, I had kids. We were friendly. Yeah, their kids. In fact, we went on Pesach. We always invited them up there, like they get matzahs, we eat the matzahs. They came up to matzahs, and on Christmas they invited us down to see the Christmas tree. I used to go down, and they showed us the presents with always lying around the Christmas tree, and there was closeness with these two families until Hitler occupied Austria, because from the day thereafter, I guess I have to say in their defense, it was probably dangerous to be friendly with Jews for a non-Jew. So I remember even though most of the people in the house were Jewish, the caretaker there was a lady who was non-Jewish, one of the few non-Jews, very friendly with the Jews. But the day after Hitler occupied Austria, she wouldn't talk to anyone. She wouldn't talk to any Jews. Yeah. So it wasn't too pleasant, certainly, and certainly not very safe to stay in Austria. So the first thing, they try to get the kids out. So that's how I ended up through Agudas Israel on that German transport, and eventually my sister, I don't know who arranged that transport, but I know it on the British side, somewhere in southern part of England, there was a minister, not a Catholic priest, it was some kind of a minister of some Christian faith, who brought up girls on what he called the domestic support transport, and so the two of us got saved. And my mother, fortunately, after my father was already in England through that cousin, ended up, her turn came to go to America, so she was the first one in America, and we followed a number of months later.
But you were still in Austria when, in the beginning of November, when the so-called Kristallnacht happened?
Yes, I was in Austria. Kristallnacht, I do have vivid memories of the temple was still, that showed me, was still standing, but the window, that beautiful these glass windows with all these designs, all shattered on the ground. Mm-hmm. I think rocks. I think they were knocked out with rocks.
Yeah. Do you remember anything else about Kristallnacht?
About Kristallnacht, really, I don't know. No. I just remember it was a lot of crystal there on the ground. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why it's called Kristallnacht. Do remember? Oh yeah, the only thing I remember that the day after Hitler occupied Austria, there was on Kierkegasse, the street, the large street crossing Kierkegasse was Wallensteinstraße. I guess Wallenstein must have been a famous person in Austria, named after him. Wallensteinstraße was the big major street, which Kierkegasse led into. And there was around the corner a big department store, and the day after it occupied, I saw trucks there cleaning out merchandise from the department store, and saying we're just buying it, pay at a later date, and they gave him a receipt for all the merchandise. But of course, the stuff was just taken out.
So whose shots were they?
Some Nazis, some.
Yeah.
It was mostly SS or SA men.
So, in the U.S., would you say that were people aware what happened to the Jewish community in Europe?
Well, I tell you, that was the big question. Why didn't the Jews in America try to arrange to get Jews out of Vienna into the United States? That was they were aware of it. Stephen White, not for a while, they weren't. It was said that they weren't aware what was happening. That that the Jews were taken to concentration camps and they were taken to crematoria there. But through Stephen Weiss, Stephen Weiss, and then who was the other a Reformed rabbi, Stephen Weiss was, and then one other person that spread the word in America. And in England, what was happening to the Jews? It was not that just anti-Semitism, but they were taken in concentration camps at that point already. By 1941, 42, the crematoria were quite active.
So you went to school after you came to the U.S.?
Yes, when I came to the U.S., as I said, my first place was in the Lower East Side. My mother's relatives got an apartment on the Lower East Side, still remember Sheriff Street on the Lower East Side. And there was a shul on the street, a big temple, a shul there.
What school did you
the school, the school was the yeshiva was called Shlomo Kluger. I was at that time in the 7th or 8th grade. I think in the 7th grade. I completed 7th and 8th grade here on the Lower East Side. Right. We moved to the Bronx. Somehow.
What did the boys in Shlomo Kluger do to you?
They always, since I spoke with, the only English I knew was with a British accent.
Mm-hmm.
So they always waited till it was half past the hour. Eric, what time is it? Say 11:30. Oh, there's a laugh. They wanted to get a laugh. They always waited until the time. They really had a laugh with me. Yeah.
Then you moved to the Bronx.
Yeah, and I moved to Bronx. I said, how did I make friends? Remember Margolis? I made a friend. I think it's
University.
Yeah. Man, that's what I didn't go to Yeshiva until I moved to the Bronx. When I moved to the Bronx, I went from Shlomo Kluger Yeshiva, went to another yeshiva. Mm-hmm. It's called Mesivta Tiferes Jerusalem, MTJ in short, on East Broadway, on the Lower East Side. There I started yeshiva there, 9th grade, until we moved to the Bronx. How did I get to the Bronx? I had a friend, and I'm trying to remember how I got to this friend. I think through an organization that we a mutual organization that we both were members of.
No, you weren't a member of that.
Wasn't I? So how did I?
He convinced you to become a
He convinced me to become a member. Yes, but how did I get to see?
from shul.
I don't remember how I got to him, but he lived in the Bronx, and somebody said I should live near him. We'd be friends. So his parents found an apartment for us in the Bronx, mm-hmm. and we ended up moving to the Bronx. And once we moved to the Bronx, of course, it was too far to go to the east side to school. So my father was told about Yeshiva University, which was, in Washington Heights, a part of New York, and my father enrolled me in that school. So I finished. They had a high school there, Talmudic Academy, at the last year of high school, and then college, Yeshiva University.
How did you pay tuition?
Oh, tuition? I didn't know. I managed to. They treated me as a refugee kid, who didn't have money. We didn't have any money. Father didn't have my tuition. They took us in for nothing. didn't pay any tuition. Both in Clonmaclough on the east side and at She University. Not only did we get they taking it for nothing, but they gave us a dining room pass, which you had to buy, but they gave it to us free of charge to eat lunches. We ate lunches there, and kind of clothing. And once during the holiday, there was a clothing. Still remember clothing on Fifth Avenue, somewhere 22nd, 23rd Street. Well, we'll have all these clothing stores. The guy who sold suits, who used to take in the kids a week or two before the holidays and give them suits. So that's where I got my clothing. Yes, fortunately, eventually, my father found employment there. He was able to support himself.
Did your family ever consider to go to Israel?
No.
You did.
I was active in the Zionist organization at the time, and we were very anxious for Israel. In fact, some of my friends. Yeah, my friends. I don't mean my wife. I wasn't married yet. My friends who ended up going to Israel, but my parents didn't want me to leave. They wanted to have me with them, so they said, "No, we don't want you to go." So I never ended up going till till we were all able to leave. I mean.
You said in this questionnaire you filled out for the Beck Institute several years ago that you once visited Austria.
Yes, I did visit Austria. Don't remember the year. I put down the year. Don't remember what year it was. I think it was 2003 or 4. No,
put it down.
I did. It was what year was it? We went on a tour to Europe. One of those tours arranged by an organization that went to France, Italy, France, and Switzerland. We started out, I think, in Italy, and from Italy to Switzerland, and from Switzerland to France, and then France back to New York. But at the time, my wife and I, we were on this tour. We decided if we were already in Europe, why not? I wanted to see Vienna again, so why not go? Oh, this is my house in Vienna. Tuckigasse 5.
1978.
That was 1978. Oh, I see. So that's when I was with 1978. I was still. Yeah, that's it. That's the house I lived in. Yeah. I still remember there was a tinsmith. That down there was a tinsmith. Yeah, what they did because before Pesach, for the Pesach holiday, he used to kosher the dishes, put them in that big ovens there, used to make the kosher. There were, I guess, in those days there wasn't enough money to buy a separate set of dishes. Nowadays, people, I doubt whether people still bother koshering the dishes. They have an extra set of dishes for Passover use. So I still remember down there to kosher the dishes. But this is a house. Interesting part, in 1978, when I went to visit that house, the first person I saw coming down there, I remember that coming into the house window here, there was a little hallway and another door leading into the backyard, and this is where my father and some of his neighbors put up a sukkah for the Sukkot holiday. So. And our windows faced the backyard, so my mother would tie a pot. Actually, had one of those. What do you call them? Some kind of a arrangement of two, one on top of the other dishes, one pot leaning on top of the other, holding the other, and two dishes, load them both down into the backyard where we had the food to eat in the sukkah. So I wanted to see that backyard again, so that he was there. I went to the door to look at the backyard, and the first person I saw coming down the stairs was a black person, which was really I hadn't seen a black person until I came to America. In England, I saw mostly Hindus with the turbans. but no black person. The only black we saw, I remember when they opened up that grand opening of that store on Wallensteinstraße, they had a tall guy dressed, in dark clothing and his face painted black. That was the closest to a black person. They was all painted black to represent a black person, which was very strange. So it was strange when the person I saw coming down the stairs here, the black person. Maybe we went upstairs, so the first one to amazed to see Spang, the name of the person who turned light on and off in our apartment and invited us in for Christmas, still on the door. So I don't know whether the people there were, it's the same people who were older people, like I was, or the children. And the apartment I lived in, I didn't want to go into, but my wife insisted, you got to go into the apartment. So she banged on the door. Fortunately, there was no one home. So I ended up never seeing that apartment in the end. It was just, the bathroom was in the hallway.
We walked through all of Vienna.
But we did a lot of walking. I had a map, and we just wanted to see. So we walked a lot. 19th district, the 20th district, across the, I think it was called the Friedensbrücke. There was a bridge leading into the night that could walk, going from the, and to the Zweiten Bezirk. There was that shul, that big shul, what was it called? That Stettengasse. The second district.
Where is
there was a big.
There's the temple today too.
Right. I
The
think
big synagogue.
when we were there, we saw that. We saw that shul.
And the Kultusgemeinde is there too.
The Kultusgemeinde, right.
Yeah.
It was the Kultusgemeinde. They're still open. The Kultusgemeinde.
Yes.
What do they do?
They support the Viennese Jews. That some are living in the second district.
You probably second, 20th district still have a lot of Jews. Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell about our walk along the Danube?
Oh, then we were walking down the Danube. We saw we were looking for a place where we could eat, a kosher place. So we didn't know how to go about. We saw a man, a Jew with long beard, obvious religious Jew, walking the street. So I approached him and asked him where there's a place to eat. He pointed out a place, but he said, no, it's a distance, no, I can't recommend you this place. But so I walked with him a little bit, and I asked him,
He invited us to his house.
He invited us to his house. I didn't want to go to his house. He says, you still live? He says, yes, the kid, he's got a son and a daughter, both he sent off to England. But he says, I'm too old, I have my home here in Vienna, he lives here, and
He's a teacher.
And he teaches, he teaches. He teaches one of the Jewish schools. And I asked him, is there any anti-Semitism now in Vienna? It was 1978. He said, no, he said, Amol Gitman Ayita Tippambud. Meaning, there were, at times you give a Jew, they pull a Jew by his beard. They give him a pull by his beard. Yes. But he took it as a matter of course, it's for granted.
But you spoke German to him.
Yeah.
Do you still...
No, actually, I spoke Yiddish. But your
PhD, you used German.
I used German. I got my doctorate at NYU. You needed to show competence in two languages. So I used French and German. I learned enough French, and I took French in high school and in college. So I knew enough to pass that French test. And of course, German, I didn't know if I would remember enough. In fact, I had trouble. They gave me the paragraphs they gave me to translate into English was taken from chemistry, a lot of chemical terms. Yeah. And, I was 11 years when I left Vienna. I hadn't taken any chemistry. I can't remember. Säure is, what's in the Säure?
Säure?
Säure, yeah. One of the chemical products. What was it? It ended up with Säure. It was I had trouble translating it to German, but I think I knew enough to pass that test.
Yeah.
in both in French and in German. So it's
Okay.
anything else I filled out there? No, I don't think I. 1978. Yeah.
So when you came to the U.S., how did you feel? What was your identity? Was it Austrian or was it Jewish? Or?
It was Jewish. I mean, we came to America. We came. I said we went straight to the Lower East Side. We were taken, and we arrived in Hoboken, in Jersey, and I imagined by train. Went from Hoboken to New York, and then I guess, however, we ended up on the Lower East Side. Some relatives came to pick us up at Hoboken and took us to the Lower East Side. And there already, mother had already been here when my father and my sister came, and they had the apartment, fortunately. And so it was a very easy transition to, it was a Jewish neighborhood, the Lower East Side, so we felt basically at home. And Roosevelt, who was president at the time, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, now that we all considered a friend of the Jews. We found out that it wasn't so much later,
Okay. So probably young students are gonna listen to this tape in Austrian high school. So is there any message you would like to leave? Or?
Well, yes, the only message I'd like to leave is this is now many years later since I left Vienna. I don't know what the situation is now in Vienna concerning anti-Semitism. Obviously, when I lived in Vienna, all the way back, there was already a situation of anti-Semitism because I was afraid to wear yarmulke, spelt in the street, and when I walked a long distance to go to the Jewish school, I tried to hide the yarmulke. And I remember incidents when we were in the park, the Augarten, the Augarten?
Yeah.
Familiar?
Later the Flakturm was there. Later they built the Flakturm there.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah.
They had a Ferris wheel, they had a Riesenrad, they have all this stuff. I remember being there and being surrounded by a group of non-Jewish students who arranged, who said, we're going to make 2 lines and you're going to have to walk through those 2 lines. That still stays in my mind. And as I walked through the line, they started hitting. They started beating me. Nothing too serious, but this type of anti-Semitism is in my mind, and I just wanted to leave the message that to beware of leaders that would try to stimulate again into the country a feeling of anti-Semitism or feeling of anti-any person rather than a member of the majority group.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
How old are these people that you have?